All right, ladies and gentlemen, children of all ages, any extraterrestrials listening, and all other organisms, welcome to episode 11 of Dream of the Week. I call this one The Spectacular Adventures of Dr. Centaur, MD. Now, before I give anything else away, I'm going to describe the dream. This dream begins as I find myself in the identity of a character I've made up for a role-playing game. I'm a healthy, fit, intelligent, and good-humored doctor. I board a ship that is crossing the ocean, a large vessel with many other people aboard. During the voyage, I spend some time getting to know the various guests and crew while collecting different parts of a cool-looking costume that I'm putting together. Then, I talk to my wife in another part of the ship, who has been turned into a talking horse. That's right, a talking horse. I interact with her a bit and soon find that I've become a centaur, while still being a doctor. Soon, the ship lands and I depart. I begin looking over the pieces of the costume I've gathered, which looks particularly awesome and badass looking on a centaur. And I compare my outfit to one that I recall a powerful centaur leader of the past wearing. Shortly after, I'm attending a rally for centaur rights. Incidentally, this is held at a yogurt convention. To demonstrate, I snatch up and eat various delicious yogurt delicacies. At that, I awaken. Now, I'm sure many of you are thinking, what am I going to make of this one? This is your typical kind of wacky dream. The kind of dream that I think everyone has, although maybe not in those specifics, where it doesn't really seem to make much sense. You get one random weird thing after another. So, am I going to chalk this up to having some weird food the night beforehand, some kind of indigestion or something? Or why exactly would I say I had a dream like this? Many people might say a dream like this is basically meaningless. It's just the random gibberish going through our minds. It's kind of why I wanted to look at it. From a literal standpoint, this dream doesn't make any sense at all. We got mythological creatures dabbling in medicine. I mean, what is the deal with that? You got a centaur doctor married to a horse on a boat looking for pieces of this gladiator-looking costume. And eating yogurt. Can't forget the yogurt. Like you'll know if you watched a lot of previous episodes of this series, this past year or so I have been studying a dream interpretation system that goes according to what they call the universal language of mind. This is something taught by a group called the School of Metaphysics, which has various branches all across the United States of America. And among other things, they teach a system of dream interpretation that likes to see everything in the dream as being a reflection of the dreamer and the dreamer's own inner personality. They like to put a spiritual spin on things. It's a especially useful interpretation system for somebody that views themselves on a spiritual path. That way you can look at the dream and see all the symbols and all the random little things there as being indications of where you are in your spiritual path. Do I say this is absolutely true? Do I agree with it in all cases? I'm afraid I don't, but it does have a lot of applications. A lot of dreams that don't really make sense on the surface can make a whole lot of sense when viewed through this universal language of mind. And even though I've been a very active dreamer all my life, as far as I can remember, I haven't always tried to interpret these varied, strange, miscellaneous dreams that you have every now and then. And I think it's particularly appropriate for me to try to look at this dream in terms of that kind of symbolism, because right now I'm coming to a point in my studies with this group, the School of Metaphysics, where I feel it's time for me to move on to pursue other types of studies, other work involving dreams, other ways of looking at the different aspects of our subconscious world. And so I'm coming to the end of what they call their first cycle. Now, I could, if I chose to, study there for many years of my life and spend a good portion of my life dedicated to their teachings. I've decided for personal reasons and, well, reasons of my own spiritual path to pursue other avenues, though I'm very thankful to the group and all that they've taught me. With that said, let's look at this dream. First off, in this dream, I'm taking on the role of a doctor. A doctor can be viewed, first off, as a healing aspect of my own self. If I were to look at everything as being symbolic for me, a doctor would be an inner healer, somebody that brings healing and health to your psyche. In addition, a doctor is a learned person, a person of great discipline, of great inner strength. Typically, even though maybe not every doctor in our society meets these criteria, a doctor is seen as a wise person who's mastered something. And we have now this doctor boarding a ship. In this universal language of mind that I've been studying, a large ship, the kind that holds multiple passengers, would be representative of an organization. And so, here we have this doctor gathering together pieces of this really cool, kind of almost gladiatory, superhero sort of costume. The costume, or the clothing, would represent a kind of role we take on, a way we portray ourselves outwardly. And we have, then, the horse. The horse who is a wife. And no bestiality involved. Even though most animals, according to this symbolism, might be symbolic of unconscious things like urges or habits or compulsions, well, the horse has a unique spot as being a symbol of the will. Like you lead the reins of your horse, you let your will guide you and propel you through your life just as a horse would be ridden. Yet, this horse I'm married to. Marriage would be symbolic for a union between different parts of myself, meaning I'm really joining with this aspect of myself, and I'm really making it a part of the conscious waking me. And as we see shortly after that, the very symbol of the centaur is like a marriage between a man and a horse, but in an even stronger way. As the horse is symbolic for the will, a centaur would be embodying a part of ourselves that's truly strong in willpower, that's really focused in pursuing our goals and our passions without stop. Also, looking at the more traditional interpretation of a centaur. In mythology, the centaurs, if you don't know, were half man, half horse beings. But unlike a lot of beings from Greek mythology, they weren't generally regarded as savage and barbaric creatures. In fact, many of the centaurs embodied qualities of wisdom. They were in fact teachers to many of the mythological heroes like Heracles. And centaurs were renowned for their lore, their healing powers, their wisdom. In fact, you could say the centaurs in mythology were some of the very first doctors. So I say the ship is in fact a symbol for that very spiritual group that I'm talking about, for this school I've been attending, this school of metaphysics. And while I entered this ship, you could say already at the stage of a doctor, meaning I had already practiced a lot of spiritual healing techniques. I had already delved deeply into these metaphysical topics myself. Here, while studying at this school, this metaphysical school, I joined with my willpower more. I became more focused and determined, and I became not just a doctor, but a centaur doctor, which is somebody who has become much more focused, much more strong in their will, who's really leading themselves, becoming both the mount and the rider, you could say. And you could say with the costumes, with trying to match the right costume and with comparing it to the costume of the ancient centaur leader, that Really, this has been about my efforts to establish and refine my own self-image, the way I'm presenting myself out to the world, to the people. And next, we move on. I exit the ship, meaning just as I am in my waking life, I'm preparing to depart this organization to move on to other territories. And we get to this strange idea of the Centaur rights movement, the activism. Looked at in this kind of symbolic way, this could be a representation of becoming more active in the world, becoming more active in my life, playing more of a part. And so what's the deal with the yogurt? Symbolically, the yogurt is a food item, and food, like I've talked about in the first dream of the week I did and a couple others, would be a symbol for knowledge. Just as we take in and digest and process the food, we process knowledge mentally, and it nourishes us on that mental level. So in conclusion, to summarize this, I'd say I could read this dream as being about my journey at the School of Metaphysics, where I may have entered it somewhat wise in my ways. Like a doctor, I was already trained in a lot of these spiritual topics. A lot of the teachings I received seemed very familiar to me, and yet here I learned something. I learned to join with that inner horse, that inner willpower, where before I might have been a bit less grounded, a bit less disciplined in things. I learned to harness the reins of my will and become one with it. And I depart the organization, having created my own empowered self-image to match my ideals. And in doing so, I venture out into the world to become active, to play a role in society, to fight for the rights of those who are themselves spiritually centaurs, who are the wise and the willful and the generally awesome people. And in doing so, I can get a whole lot of excellent, healthy, yogurt-like knowledge. Here I'm giving you an interpretation of a dream that on the surface looks wacky and zany and ridiculous. Probably doesn't make much sense. Yet I am making sense of it. That, it seems, is what a dream interpretation system like this can do. It can take what doesn't make sense and put some kind of message into it. Some people might say it's a load of hogwash. That basically using a system like the universal language of mind, that you could make sense out of anything, even if there is no innate sense there. That, you could interpret the Bible with it, but you could also interpret a Jim Carrey movie with it or something, and probably get similar results. You might find yourselves asking, and I find myself asking, is there any innate truth that an interpretation system like this brings to the surface? Or does it allow us to basically create meaning and truth where there is none? I'd say this: to get a definitive answer on a question like that, you gotta be all crazy and philosophical and delve into the very meaning of meaning. I know, it sounds like something Bill Clinton would say. That depends on what the meaning of the word is. But, yeah, it's the case. I mean, what is meaning? Is meaning something that is inherent in an object itself? Is there inherent meaning in, say, a dream? Placed there by the being that created the dream. In this case, I suppose you'd have to get theological in order to have that inherent meaning, because who would create a dream but the creator? If it's just a creation of your own mind, well, I think all meaning maybe goes out the window. Unless you're also speaking about your own mind in a higher sense as being linked to that creator and a part of that creator. Or some people might say that meaning is only something given by the observer, that there is no inherent meaning in anything except that meaning that we give it. That we can choose to see these valuable lessons in our dreams. We could choose to see hidden truths within them. Or we could look at it as a bunch of random craziness. I'll say that I found some value in dreams like this. If I look at it according to this universal language of mind, dream interpretation system, I can find some meaning in these dreams. And I'm not just using that system because if I tried to apply it without really applying my personal filters to it and looking at these dreams and seeing what the symbols mean to me, I'd probably get a bunch of metaphysical mumbo jumbo that doesn't mean anything to me or to anyone else. So yeah, this has helped me get some value from dreams like this. I'm not a person that goes to absolutes right now. I've studied a lot of spiritual topics. I've done a lot of meditation and prayer. I've had a lot of very profound experiences myself. And despite them, or maybe even because of them, I'm still not a person who espouses some absolute truth and says that there is an absolute meaning to a dream. I'm still in that maybe zone. And I feel that's okay. Sometimes it can be fun to be in that maybe zone. Hey, and maybe this dream did show up just because I've been watching a bit too much Hercules and Xena, where there are a lot of centaurs that appear. Maybe it's a bit of that, on top of a dream with a bit of meaning to it. Could be a mix and match of things. Either way, I hope that by looking at a random weird dream like this and finding a possible meaning to it, that maybe I can help all of you beautiful people out there find meaning in your own strange dreams. Because dreams can be weird sometimes. Again, when people think about dreams, they think about these weird, disjointed things. And while not all dreams are like that, there are those that are. And sometimes they can confound us. You don't have to find meaning in them, but it's nice to know sometimes that you can. So, what is the truth of this sensational adventure of Dr. Centaur, MD? Does it have a profound meaning to it? Is it a reflection of my outer life or my inner thoughts? Or is it a bunch of randomness? Well, I'll leave that for you to decide for yourselves. And next week, I'm sure we're going to have a whole different kind of dream, filled with all sorts of fascinating topics. But until then, my friends, goodbye, and may your dreams bring you whatever you need. Take care.